Hi and welcome back to Chino Does Stuff. So why use the SPFx Webpart? Well, if you're a SharePoint developer and have been for a few years, I'm guessing you've built at least one or two single-page applications using JavaScript and the script editor Webpart. You may have noticed in Office 365, using the modern interface, the script editor Webpart is no longer available. So what do? Well, Microsoft have provided the SharePoint Framework for building those exact sorts of applications. In this episode, we'll build a really simple SPFx Webpart and then deploy it to my Office 365 tenant. Let's get started.
Okay, so like I said in my introduction, the first thing we're going to do is set up our environment so we can build our client-side Webpart or our SPFx SharePoint Framework Webpart. Now, the first thing you're going to need on your PC is Node, and you can get Node through the Node website. At the time of recording this video, the Node address is nodejs.org/en for English, and the version of Node that you're going to want is the recommended version. Now, I had an earlier version of Node on my machine when I began looking at this, and I was having some problems getting everything working. So my strong recommendation is that the first thing you do, even if you do already have Node on your machine, is you go into browse to the Node.js website and download the version that is recommended at the time. It may not actually be this version because it depends on the time that you're watching this video. I won't go through the process of showing you this download and install because it really couldn't be simpler. Okay, so once you have Node installed, I'm just going to flip over to Visual Studio to continue our setup. So the first thing we need to do is run this command. Now, this is the Node Package Manager, and we want to do an install and a global install across Node, and we need to install these three packages. Now, you'll need all three to develop SPFx Webparts, Gulp, Yeoman, and this Microsoft Generator SharePoint package. Now, once you've done this once, you won't have to do it again. This is a one-time install. Once this is installed into your Node environment, you won't have to ever worry about this again. It'll all be set up and ready to go. So this is pretty much a self-install. It won't, I'm pretty sure it doesn't ask any questions while it's installing. I won't run it now because I've already done this on my machine, but I don't think there's any interaction. It'll just go through and then tell you that all three packages have been installed correctly. If you get an error during this install, maybe try again, or I would check your version of Node.js. It will probably prompt you with an error saying that your Node.js is not compatible with one of these three packages. So once this is done, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my folder . That's an old. I'm going to create a folder called SPFx demo just on my hard drive somewhere. This really doesn't matter what it's called. I've just put this under a programming projects folder and created a folder underneath there called SPFx demo. To generate the project, I just run the following command: yo @Microsoft/SharePoint. It's going to call this Chino Webpart. It's for SharePoint Online only. Yes, use the current folder. Just going to take the defaults for everything else. And I'm creating a Webpart. What's your Webpart name? I'm going to call it Chino Webpart. Give it a default description, and I'm not going to use any additional JavaScript frameworks to keep this demo as simple as possible. We'll just go with we won't go with one of the known JavaScript frameworks like React or Knockout. We will just choose a no JavaScript framework option. This will probably take several minutes, so I'll make a cut in the video at this point and come back to it. Okay, so once that's done, you can see congratulations, solution Webpart is created. And the next line here is run gulp serve to play with it. So the gulp, I should say, is a really useful tool. It packages up, it helps us package up our solution for deployment. It also lets us test the solution offline on our own development environment, or we can serve it up to the demo or the test workbench inside of our actual tenant. What I do recommend first though, before we go any further, is just running this command here. So if we don't do this, what will happen is when we run gulp serve, we will get a certificate error in our browser. So you only ever have to run that once and then it's done. Now, if we just quickly run up gulp serve, and we can see we're running a sort of an offline version of a SharePoint page here, and this is where our Webpart will be hosted. While we're developing it, we'll host it offline. This is where we can actually see our Webpart as it'll appear when we deploy it in production. If we just hit this, we can there's our Webpart there. Click on that. So this is our SPFx Webpart as it is when we first generated our project. So if we go back to Visual Studio, see on the left hand side underneath our SPFx demo all of our project files. Now what we're really concerned with today is just the files that are under the source folder. And the first one the main file that we're really concerned about is the Chino Webpart TS. Now this will be called whatever project that you named your application or your Webpart. So mine is called Chino Webpart, so it's Chino Webpart Webparts.ts. Let's open that up. And you can see we've got some classes declared here and some methods underneath those classes. We've also got some imports and we got an export interface here as well. So the main thing that stands out here is this export default class, which your file will also have. And under here, the method, the render method, we can see here's our Webpart. And this should hopefully look pretty familiar to you as well, being that it's effectively HTML here being rendered. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I want to just create my own Webpart, I'm just going to gut all of that. So I'm just going to add a paragraph here, which is going to make reference properties, the description field. Save that. Go back to our Webpart. See now it says Chino Webpart. If we click on the pencil, we can change this. Let's put this is Chino's first SPFx Webpart. So now we have a Webpart that has a input field that will be displayed inside of the Webpart contents, which is great. And if we added another Chino Webpart here, we can configure this one to say something completely different. So let's add some more properties. Right, so the first thing we need to do that, there's 3 different places we have to add that property field. So first, we'll add it up here under the export interface section. Just call this title and we'll make this a string. Now, because we've set that up here, we should be able to reference it inside of our render method. So let's give that a go. And we can see that title is now available. So let's click save. So now we have undefined here. And when we click on the pen, we don't have the title field available in our selection of properties for our web part. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and we need to add this in a couple of other places. So under the Get Property Pane configuration here, we can see a bit of a structure, and we're looking for the group fields value underneath the groups array. We can see that's an array because we've got a square bracket. So under group fields, we've got property pane, description, and the label. So what we want to do is just copy that. So we're just copying one of the property pane text fields. We're going to add, we separate it by a comma because there's an array, remember, it's in the array group fields. And in here, I'll change this to title. By default, I'm just going to make that blank. Okay, so let's save that. Okay, so there's only one other place that we need to make this change to complete this additional property field, and that is under the Chino webpart.manifest.json file. So this will be your project.manifest.json file. So if I open that, you can see a whole heap of properties in here, but the section we're looking for is this object here, properties. So all we want to do is add an additional section here. Call that title, and we just have it blank for by default. Let's click save. Just a quick fix there. I didn't give this field a label, so let's just give it a label quickly. Click save. Okay, so there's two commands we need to run to get this ready for deployment. The first command is gulp bundle -- ship. So let's run that. And we're running that inside our SPFx folder. This will go through and do the first part of our package. Now the last command we want to run is gulp package-solution space -- ship. And we've got it all done there. So in our package structure, we can see under SharePoint, we've got a file that's been created called chino-webpart.sppkg. That is our package file that we need to copy to our app catalog in our SharePoint online tenant. So let me first reveal. I'm just going to right click on that and do reveal in Explorer. I'm going to go to my SharePoint tenant. Let's just open up my app catalog. Going to apps for SharePoint. You can see I already have one deployed there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this file over from my computer and place it inside of my app catalog, and I'll get this message: do you trust Chino Webpart client-side solution? And I do. I'm going to hit deploy. And that seems to have deployed correctly with no errors. So that was just me dragging that SPFx file over to that library. I'm not sure if you could see the Explorer window or if I captured the Explorer window correctly, but all I did was open that file, reveal in Explorer, and drag that SPFx file over to the apps for my app catalog, and that uploads it to the app catalog, and then I get the prompt message to say deploy. I hit deploy, and now my solution has been deployed to the app catalog. So if we go back and we just open, let's just open a site, and let me edit this page. I already have a web part here, so let's get rid of that. Now I want to add a new web part to this page. Right, so I'll click on the plus and scroll down, and I'm looking for, remember we called the web part Chino Webpart. So let's scroll down, and I'm not seeing it there. Now the reason I'm not seeing it there, because even though I have deployed my application to the app catalog, I haven't installed it into this site. So let's go to site content, and in here I just want to install a new app to this site. So if we scroll down the list, we can see one of our apps that are available here is Chino Webpart client-side solution, which is the app that we just deployed to the app catalog. So I'm just going to click on that. You can see that it's now in the process of installing into the site. That might take a couple of seconds. And now it's installed. If we go back to home, let's edit this page. Let's add a new web part. If we scroll down, we can see our web part available here, Chino Webpart. So let's add that. Let's add it to the top of the page. If we click on the pencil, you can see our editing properties, editable properties. Let's make a change to the title, which is our custom property that we added to this web part. Right. And there we are. We have our new web part that we've deployed to SharePoint and created using SPFx and the SharePoint Framework. So in upcoming episodes, I would like to show a little bit more what the SPFx web part can do. In particular, I'd like to show some interactivity with some SharePoint content, say maybe a SharePoint list, maybe even creating a little simple form inside of a web part that allows you to update some data or quickly do an update to a SharePoint list item would be really nice, and something that definitely adds value to your SharePoint setup. Now, really the sky's the limit when it comes to these web parts. You can pretty much everything you were able to do with the script editor web part, you should be able to do inside of an SPFx web part. There's just a little bit more setting up and a little bit more that you need to do first before you can get that up and running. But hopefully now you guys have got a grasp of what is involved with that.
So that's a simple introduction to the SPFx web part. In the next episode, I think we'll dive into some more advanced techniques. Maybe try to display some content from a SharePoint list. If you like what you saw here today, please subscribe to support the channel. I thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.